The beeping of the heart monitor was steady, rhythmic, a reminder that I was still here. The IV dripped into my arm, slow and methodical, as I stared up at the blank hospital ceiling. I tried not to think about the pain from surgery. My body was healing, but my mind refused to rest. I had been in that hospital bed for 3 days, recovering from a procedure I hadn't asked for but hadn't been able to avoid. Then my phone rang. Dad. I stared at the screen, hesitating. We weren't close. Not anymore. My father, Greg, only called when he wanted something. I wasn't in the mood to hear whatever excuse he had this time. But something made me answer. "Hey, kiddo," he said too casually. "How you feeling?" I closed my eyes. That was rare. Him asking how I was. Which meant, of course, that he was about to follow it with something terrible. "I'm fine," I said flatly. "What's up?" There was a pause, then the words that sent a chill down my spine. "So, I used your college fund to settle some debts. It's not like you needed it, right?" I sat up too fast. Pain stabbed through my abdomen and I gasped, hand clutching my side. "What?" My voice came out weirdly calm, like I was watching this conversation happen to someone else. "Yeah, well, things got tight," he said, like it was no big deal. "You know how it is, and I figured. You've already done some college. You're smart, you'll figure it out." Like it was nothing. Like he hadn't just stolen years of my work. Since I was 16, I'd scraped together scholarships, taken part-time jobs, tutoring gigs, every dollar carefully saved to cover my final 2 years of college. The home stretch. And now, it was gone. My fingers tightened around the phone. My heart thudded in my ears. "How much is left?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Another pause. Then, nothing. It's all gone." I exhaled slowly, mind racing, voice steady. "I see." There was silence on his end, then a chuckle. "That's my girl, always practical. Look, no point getting upset. What's done is done, right? You can't get it back, so might as well move on." Move on. I glanced around the hospital room, the pale walls, the bruises on my arms from needles, the IV dripping steadily. That fund wasn't just about money, it was my future, my escape, my independence, and he'd stolen it like it was pocket change. "Good luck with that," I said flatly. He laughed. "See? That's the attitude. Knew you'd understand. Anyway, gotta run. Meeting some friends for drinks. We'll catch. Up when you're out, yeah?" Then he hung up. I stared at the phone in my hand. The room suddenly too quiet. The weight of what had just happened started to settle. I should have cried. I should have panicked. But I didn't. Because Greg didn't know something important. I wasn't a little girl anymore, and this time he wasn't going to get away with it. I opened my banking app. Just as I expected, 0 balance. He'd drained it all, but he forgot who he raised. I'd always been careful, always prepared. I had backup accounts he didn't know about. Safety nets. Because when you grow up with someone like Greg, you learn the rules early. Never trust, never rely, always prepare. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. But I was going to make damn sure he regretted ever thinking he could steal from me. When I got home from the hospital, I didn't waste time. I wasn't mourning the money. That was old Mia, the one who believed family meant unconditional trust. This new version of me, she knew better. Still sore, I limped to my desk and opened my laptop. The discharge papers were still in my bag, barely glanced at. This was the real priority. First, I pulled up my bank account, not to check the balance, but the activity log. Every withdrawal, every timestamp. He had been methodical, draining the account in increments, just below the threshold for automatic fraud alerts. Classic Greg. I took screenshots of everything, every suspicious transaction. Then I opened my old scholarship emails, the proof that I had earned every penny. Next, I emailed the bank requesting an official statement of all account activity over the past year, because Greg had made one crucial mistake. Yes, he was a co-signer, but that didn't make what he did legal. With hope. He leaned forward just, slightly, the way he always did when he thought he was winning. "That's great, sweetheart. Just a little help, that's all I need, just until things pick back up again." I stared at him, letting him believe it for one more beat. Then I leaned in too, lowering my voice just enough to make him really listen. "I have money saved, yes, but not for you." The look on his face shifted so fast it was almost comical. Confusion first, then disbelief, and finally, a flicker of anger. "Come on, Mia," he said, his tone dropping. "Don't be like that. You think I wanted to take that money? I had to. I was in a tight spot." "You stole it," I said, not raising my voice, just stating it flatly. "You lied about what it was for. You made me trust you." "And I said I was sorry," he snapped, louder than he meant to. A few people looked over from nearby tables. He lowered his voice. "What more do you want from me?" I met his eyes and didn't blink. "I want you to face what you've done. I want you to stop thinking you can just keep taking from people and never pay the price." His mouth opened, then shut. He looked suddenly smaller, like someone who'd finally realized the game wasn't going his way. I stood up, grabbing my bag. "This was your last chance to be honest. I hope you use whatever time you have left wisely, because the next time we talk—" I paused, letting the weight of it land. "It'll be in court." And then I walked out, not once looking back. "That's my girl," he said, reaching across the table like we were on the same team. "See? I knew you'd understand. Just a little loan. I'll pay you back." Just like he had promised when he drained my college fund. I leaned forward just slightly. "I have one question." He nodded, eager. "Of course. Anything." I smiled, my voice calm. "Why don't you just use the money from your secret account?" His body went still. For the first time since I walked in, Greg looked genuinely afraid. I could see it, the frantic calculations behind his eyes, trying to decide if I was bluffing. What?" He laughed, forced. "Mia, honey, I don't—" I pulled out my phone and laid it on the table, screen up. "I know about the account in your name, the one you didn't think I'd find." His expression twisted into something ugly, but I wasn't done. "I know you've been moving money into it for years. I know that while you were borrowing from me, you were stashing cash for yourself. And I know that even after stealing my college fund, you still have enough tucked away to stay comfortable." I leaned back, crossed my arms. "So tell me, Dad, why exactly should I be the one helping you?" His jaw clenched, and for the first time in my life, I saw it. Panic. Greg had always been good at talking his way out of trouble. He'd convinced people to lend him money, forgive debts, turn a blind eye. But he'd never prepared for this, for, me being the one holding the cards. His voice dropped. "How did you find out?" I smiled. "I had help. My aunt, his sister, the lawyer, had helped me track everything. And Grandma, his own mother? She'd been furious. I expected disappointment. Instead, she looked me straight in the eye and said, 'It's time he learns what it means to face real consequences.'" Greg's hand tightened around his coffee cup. His mask was slipping. "Mia, listen." I held up a hand. "No. You listen." I tapped my phone screen, showing him the draft email addressed to my bank. It detailed everything. The account, the lies, the theft. His face went pale. "You have two options," I said, voice even. "One, you pay back every single cent you stole from me. I don't care if it takes years. I want it all." He swallowed. And the second?" I tilted my head. "I press charges. Fraud, theft, financial abuse. And once I report you, The IRS will take a very close look at that secret account of yours. The color drained from his face. Because he knew. He wasn't just staring down a financial loss. He was staring down prison time. Greg always thought he was untouchable, that he could manipulate his way out of anything. But this time, he picked the wrong person. I took a slow sip of coffee, met his eyes. "So what's it gonna be, Dad?" He didn't answer right away, just sat there gripping his cup like it was the only thing keeping him upright. I watched his jaw tighten, nostrils flare. He was angry, angrier than I'd ever seen. But it wasn't the anger of an innocent man. It was the rage of someone who'd just lost control. "You wouldn't do that," he said finally, voice low. I raised an eyebrow. "Wouldn't I?" He laughed, shaky, forced, shaking his head. "Mia, sweetheart, this is family. You don't go around threatening your own father." I stared at him, deadpan. "You stole my future. You don't get to talk to me about family." The words hit like a slap. His smirk faltered, for just a second. Greg was a survivor. He always knew how to pivot, how to charm and weasel his way out of anything. His voice softened, fake warmth dripping from it. "Mia, listen, I know you're upset. I get it. But this is going too far." I leaned forward again, elbows on the table. Too far? Too far was stealing from me while I was in the hospital. Too far was gambling away my future and acting like it didn't matter. He opened his mouth to argue. I raised my hand. "Save it." I held up my hand, voice steady. "Let me be very clear. I'm done playing your games." I leaned in, slightly. "I have everything I need to take you down. The only reason I'm giving you a choice is because I'm kind. Don't mistake that for weakness." The silence between us was thick. Greg looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time, not as the daughter he could manipulate, but the woman who had finally outgrown his control. I let the silence stretch just long enough for my words to sink in. Then I stood, sliding, my phone into my pocket. "You have 1 week," I said. "I expect the first payment by then. If I don't get it, I make the call." I picked up my bag, slung it over my shoulder, and walked out without looking back. I didn't waste time, hoping Greg would suddenly do the right thing. I knew him too well for that. Instead, I got to work. First, I sent copies of all my evidence to Aunt Sarah. She'd already been researching options, and now that I'd confronted him, she was ready to move forward. "Smart move giving him a deadline," she told me over the phone. "It forces his hand. He either pays or he panics." I had a feeling it would be the latter. Next, I called my university's financial aid office. They'd been helpful before, but with solid proof of financial abuse, they stepped up. I applied for emergency grants and secured enough funding to cover at least 1 semester. Not perfect, but a start. Then I waited. Greg lasted exactly 5 days. Day 5, 10:14 a.m. Greg, "Hey kiddo, just checking in. Hope you're doing okay." Ignored. Day 5, 3:42 p.m. Greg, "Mia, I think we should talk. No need to be so drastic about all this." Ignored. Day 6, 9:21 a.m. Greg, "Okay, this is getting ridiculous. You can't just cut off your own father like this." Ignored. By day 7, desperation cracked through. Day 7, 11:56 p.m. Greg, "Please, Mia. I don't have the money. I can't pay you back. Just give me some time." I stared at the message for a long time before replying. Me. Time won't magically bring back my money. Find a way. His response was immediate. "Greg, you're being heartless." I laughed. Heartless? This was the man who stole from his daughter while she was in a hospital bed. And I was the heartless one. I turned off my phone and went to sleep. The next morning, my grandmother called. "He showed up at my house last night," she said, her voice sharp. "Tried to get me to talk to you." I clenched my jaw. "What did you say?" I told him he made his bed. Now he has to lie in it. Warmth bloomed in my chest. My grandmother had always been the only person Greg feared. He pushed everyone else, but never her. Until now. He's panicking, she said. And when Greg panics, he gets sloppy. She was right. 2 hours later, I got a text from my cousin, Jake. Jake. Yo, Uncle Greg just called. Tried to get me to co-sign a loan for him. I nearly dropped my phone. Co-sign a loan? Greg had never been this desperate. He was spiraling and trying to drag others down with him. I took a deep breath, centering myself. It was time for the final phase. Greg thought he was the master manipulator, but now he was the one trapped, and I was the one holding the key. By the end of the week, his pleading turned pathetic. Day 8, 7:32 a.m. Greg. Mia, we need to talk. I can't come up with the money that fast. Let's work something out. Ignored. Day 9, 5:47 p.m. Greg. Your grandmother turned you against me, didn't she? I always knew she wanted to make me look bad. I laughed and ignored. Day 20:51. 9:12 p.m. Mia, please. I don't have anywhere else to turn. I finally replied at 20:59. Me. You had options. You chose to steal from me instead. His response was instant. Greg 2107. It wasn't like that. You don't understand how much pressure I was under. Me. And yet you had enough to waste my money on gambling and drinking. Greg 2121. I swear I'll fix this. Just give me time. I stared at the message. I could almost hear his voice, smooth, practiced, the same tone he had used my entire life whenever he wanted to escape consequences. But it wouldn't work this time, because I was about to close the trap. The next morning, I made my final move. I submitted the full documentation to my university, reinforcing my request for additional aid. Within hours, a senior administrator responded. They had reviewed my case and were now offering me an emergency grant to cover my remaining tuition. Step 1, secure my future. Then I forwarded all the proof of my father's financial abuse, bank statements, stolen funds, his own incriminating messages, to my Aunt Sarah. She called immediately. Are you sure you want to go through with this? Yes. She let out a low whistle. All right then. Let's burn this to the ground. Step 2. Make Greg accountable. That evening, I didn't call Greg. I didn't text. I sent screenshots of his messages and proof of his secret account to our family group chat, then watched the fire spread. The explosion was immediate. My phone blew up. Aunts, uncles, cousins, some in disbelief, others furious. Aunt Patricia. He stole from his own daughter. Cousin Jake. Didn't he do something like this to Grandma too? Uncle Ray. I always knew Greg was bad with money, but this is insane. Within an hour, the family was in full revolt. And Greg? He cracked. He called. This time I picked up. What the hell did you do? He demanded, voice shaking. I said nothing. Let him sit in the silence. You're ruining me, Mia. Do you understand that? I smiled. No, Dad. You ruined yourself. You don't get it. They're turning against me. My own family is cutting me off. Sounds like consequences. He was breathing hard. Mia, please. This is my life you're destroying. My grip tightened around the phone. I thought about all the times he had lied, stolen, used me. About the hospital bed I'd been lying in when he emptied my account. And now he wanted mercy. You know what's funny, Dad? I said, voice calm. That's exactly how I felt when you stole my future. Silence. He had no comeback this time. You made your bed. Now lie in it. And I hung up. He tried fighting back. First, he ran to my grandmother for sympathy. She turned him away. Then he tried to convince my mom to mediate. She laughed in his face. Finally, he tried gaslighting the family, claiming I exaggerated everything. But the receipts I'd sent made every lie collapse. Within days, he lost all financial support from the family. By the end of the week, Aunt Sarah sent a formal demand letter. If he didn't start paying me back, we'd take legal action. I heard from Grandma that he was scrambling, desperate. He had spent his life manipulating people to clean up his messes, but this time, there was no one left to save him. No one but himself. And for a man like Greg, that was the worst punishment of all. Greg stopped calling after that. Once the family cut him off and Aunt Sarah sent the legal paperwork, the flood of desperate messages and voicemails stopped. The silence was almost unsettling. Almost. But I knew better. Men like Greg didn't just disappear. They hid. They schemed. I wasn't surprised when Grandma called a week later. "He's trying to spin the story," she said, irritated. "Telling everyone you blew this out of proportion, that you embarrassed him out of spite." I laughed. "Of course he is," she sighed. "He says he's thinking of leaving town, says he needs a fresh start." A fresh start, his favorite move. Whenever things got tough, when the lies caught up to him, when no one was left to enable him, he ran. Just like when I was a kid, when his business failed and he uprooted us overnight. New city, new life, pretending nothing happened. But this time was different. This time he wasn't running from mistakes. He was running from consequences. "Let him," I said. "I don't care where he goes, as long as he knows he's not escaping this." Because no matter how far he ran, the legal debt remained. Every month he would be reminded of me. He tried to steal the future from me, but in the end, he failed. Greg had fooled plenty of people in the past, but his charm had long since worn thin. His reputation was in ruins, and the money he took was mine again. The months that followed were strange. I'd spent so long fighting to reclaim what was stolen that when the dust finally settled, I found myself facing something unfamiliar. Peace. With the repayments finally coming in from Greg, I was able to finish my degree. The university, now aware of everything that had happened, helped me restructure my final semester. I balanced part-time work with my studies. It wasn't easy, but I was free, and that made every long night, every extra shift, every bone-deep exhaustion worth it. I wasn't waiting for someone else to fix things anymore. More importantly, I wasn't waiting for Greg's approval. Nearly a year had passed when he called me one last time. The phone buzzed in my hand, his name on the screen. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the decline button. But something made me pause. I wanted to hear what he'd say. "Mia," he said, voice cautious, almost unsure. I stayed silent. "I heard you graduated." That's great. I always knew you were smart." I closed my eyes. He was testing the waters, fishing. I didn't give him anything. He cleared his throat. "Listen, I was thinking maybe we could talk, clear the air. I mean, we're still family, right?" I shook my head, letting out a quiet breath. He hadn't changed. This wasn't an apology. It was a probe. He was hoping I'd softened, that I'd left a door open for him to slither back through. "No, Dad," I said, my voice calm. "We're not." Silence. Then the mask dropped. "Oh, so that's it?" he snapped. "You get your little revenge and now you think you're better than me?" I smiled. "No, I just don't need you anymore." I hung up, and this time I knew he wouldn't call again. A few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. It was from my grandmother. Inside was a note in her sharp, graceful handwriting. "I want you to know how proud I am of you. You didn't just fight back. You built something stronger because of it. That's more than your father ever managed." Tucked into the envelope was something else, a folded check, the exact amount Greg had stolen. I called her immediately. "Grandma, I can't take this." "Yes, you can," she interrupted, her voice firm. "And you will. But no buts. You already earned that money once. This isn't charity." It's me making things right. Tears stung my eyes. I don't want his theft to define you, sweetheart, she said gently. I want you to move forward, without that weight on your back. I swallowed hard. Thank you. Don't thank me, she said with a warm chuckle. Just promise me one thing. Anything. She paused for a moment, then said softly, Promise me you'll never let anyone, family or not, take advantage of you again. I closed my eyes, her words wrapping around my heart like armor. I promise. And this time I meant it. Greg lost everything. The family cut him off for good. His name was ruined, and every month he was forced to send a check, a reminder that I was no longer his safety net. Me? I thrived. I built a life without him. I found success in spite of him, and the best part? He had to watch it all happen. Knowing he played no part in it, the greatest revenge wasn't the money, it was freedom.